Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric. We've got a fun and unexpected episode of our MiSTer series here this morning, and that's because over the weekend on Unstable MiSTer, a core for Sega Saturn came out. Now before you get too excited, please be aware that this is still a preliminary core. It is probably pre-alpha and maybe less than 10% of games actually function, but it is something that you can download and check out if you want to, and the fact that SRG320 even brought this to us with this current situation is spectacular. I'll leave a link to his Patreon down below. You should think about supporting him if you guys have the means to do so. But Sega Saturn on MiSTer is here, but like I said, it's in its infancy. Maybe some games will work perfectly, maybe some games will have hard graphical glitches or freezes, and maybe some games won't boot at all. That's how early this is in the process, but I love making these videos and getting people hyped about what's coming, and if you want to join the Discord and help test games, that would be awesome. Now I did have a lot of help on this video because when you're listening to this, I'm probably in my studio packing it up to move it across Chicago for my job. So big thanks to Funky Cochise, Deli Pancakes, and He Who Is Red for sharing some of their captures with me to get this video done this week. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Big credit to all of you as well. But you'll see here, that's Sega Rally and it's running, and going over to Darius Gaiden, an absolutely spectacular 2D shmup that if you've never played, you definitely should check it out. Some games are working on a MiSTer, and that is so exciting. It's incredible to think this is just happening right when the developments of the PlayStation 1 core went public and most people are playing PlayStation 1 on their MiSTer. And having Saturn on FPGA is going to be incredible, not because the hardware is delicate. Compared to the PlayStation 1, the Sega Saturn I think is a tank, but mostly because a lot of people probably didn't play Saturn back in the day in North America. So hopefully this brings more fans to the Saturn. You will see here that graphically there are still some little bits of wiggle around the edges, for lack of a better term, but it is in development. But the fact that graphically these 3D polygons are rendering well on Saturn here in Resident Evil 1 is spectacular. It looks clean, it looks nice, and this is a great version of Resident Evil if you've never played it. But it's just wild to think that the Saturn is possible on MiSTer. A lot of talented developers do a lot of things, but the architecture of the Saturn was an absolute mess with its dual processors in VDP1 and VDP2. It's a lot of logic to fit onto that little FPGA chip, and I am so impressed that people are getting things like PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn done. It's wild to think it's possible, and I can't even imagine the type of work that goes into these things, let alone SRG320 in its current situation being able to still work on them. Seems like 2D games are working relatively well for the most part. I have been getting some reports from different people on the MiSTer Discord of what is and what isn't working. And if you want to join the Discord, or if you're already on there, you should definitely download this and test some of the games out and report what is and what isn't working on a spreadsheet they have in there. Now this is working on Unstable MiSTer Main, and I'm not going to show you how to install it because Unstable is exactly that. It's unstable. If you know how to do it, you already know how to do it. You don't need me. I will do a setup guide on this when it gets way more mature. It might be in 2 weeks, it might be in 2 months, it might be, towards the end of the year. This is just to get people excited about what's coming to MiSTer and to keep people informed of everything that is happening. But you see Sonic there, he looks great. There are very mild features in there. You can basically just define your buttons like any other core, and I'm sure this will get more bits added to it as the development goes on. But you can check it out, and that's the biggest takeaway here, is that you can start playing around with Sega Saturn on MiSTer. And throughout the weekend, once I'm done with my studio move, I'm going to test a bunch of games out and report them over to the MiSTer Discord and get a little more footage so I can show you guys some more games and maybe do an update to this video in 2 weeks. I want to do this the same way I did PlayStation 1, but 3D looks great. Sonic Jam here, this 3D area, the only 3D we ever got for Sonic on the system as far as not a racing game is concerned, looks awesome. The person that captured has a filter over it, but the sound works as well. It's a little bit rough, but go ahead and listen and I'll come back and talk more about the Saturn. Enjoy. Actually, you get to hear absolutely nothing, because would you believe the background music in Mortal Kombat put up a copyright strike? I mean, there's so many sound effects over it, it makes absolutely no sense to me it would do that, and that is one of the annoying things about dealing with YouTube sometimes, is that little segment right there for 5 seconds made the entire video have a copyright strike against my channel. So you just have to listen to me when I say that the sound is decent, you can hear it underneath my vocals, but there is a little bit of crackliness to it. I'm sure that will get improved further on as the core develops, but hey, at least you can see an awesome fatality. You gotta love Mortal Kombat for doing that. And now that I've gotten us past that copyright strike, back to our original programming. Clearly you can tell that the prelim core still have sounds issues, but I'm sure that will all get ironed out, and it's just because the Saturn is so complex, and that's the thing. The fact that it's even working to this degree so far is impressive, because if you've ever looked into the architecture of the Saturn, it is just a silicon mess. Sega made it extremely complicated, which is not the worst thing in the world, but it just made it harder for developers to actually have to deal with, and I'm sure the core developers are dealing with that as well. Now this does work on both single RAM and dual RAM configurations. Apparently compatibility at this point in time is better on the dual RAM version, so if you do have dual RAM you might get some better results, but the fact that it's working on single RAM at all makes it seem like preliminarily this might be just like the PlayStation 1 core where dual RAM is not required. Now of course that is subject to change, but maybe it's time to pick up a second dual RAM stick just so you can test this out. And you'll see in some games like Panzer Dragoon here, there's some features just missing, and that is probably due to the fact that some of the implementation of the VDP chips may not be functioning or done yet, because like I said, so much goes into making up an image on the Saturn. There's different processes on VDP1 and VDP2. If something isn't 100% strung together in code, you probably just don't get some of the graphics on screen. But this cutscene looks amazing. This just looks like something that would be playing on an original Saturn, and I do have a Saturn with a large collection next to me, so it is going to be really exciting to see those games running on the MiSTer. It is nothing short of amazing. People are able to pull this off, and you'll see here in Panzer Dragoon as we go into the cave, it seems like there's more visuals in here, but it looks good. It looks clean. If you showed me 10 seconds of this and told me that it was the Sega Saturn, I would probably be fooled unless I really pixel peeped, and that is a really telling sign of how good this core is assembling at this point in time, that things like that are possible. And SRG320 did give me permission some months ago, probably maybe right around Christmas or January, to use some of his footage as well, and you can see for 2D games it looks even better. It's just wild to think that this is possible. I'm always blown away and surprised by the developers in MiSTer making these cores for FPGA and seeing exactly what they're able to pull off. And I'm really excited to start testing this thing out and helping out in the community, and that is my open call to you as well. If you're into these videos, if you have a MiSTer, the more reports on what is and isn't working, the better the community is for it. So definitely try to play around with it and check it out, because you can see Sonic R here running really well, and it looks like a mess, and that's because the game is a mess. I'm sure Sonic's controlling exactly like you would on a real Saturn, which is to say bouncing around the walls and making the game almost unplayable. Really not sure what Sega was thinking with this one when they made it. It's, you know, a really valiant attempt, but it just isn't that exciting. But something like Sega Rally, if you've never played it before and you can play it for the first time on MiSTer, I think you're going to really love this game, because the Saturn doesn't get as much credit as it deserves compared to the PlayStation 1. Sure, it did not succeed the same way the Genesis and the Mega Drive did, but that does not mean that it doesn't have an expansive library of some of the best 32-bit games of all time. And I'm excited for more people to learn and discover the Saturn library via MiSTer, because I understand not everyone can own original hardware and have a library of games. And like I've always said on the channel before, I'm not so much concerned how you play a game so long as it is that you play it. If you play it and you enjoy it and you have fun, I'm happy because you got to experience it. And if you've never played Knights before, definitely check it out on this core. It is functioning. It may freeze time and again, but it's still a sight to behold. When this game first came out, I absolutely fell in love with it, and watching it in action here on MiSTer, it is just as good. But yeah, that's why I did this video so early. I got really excited for it, and thanks for the community help as well, because like I said, this is the busiest week I'll probably have all year. The next couple of weeks are just a mess with my actual filmmaking job, but I wanted to get the hype reel out. I wanted to get people excited, and I wanted to get people to realize that FPGA Sega Saturn is coming to MiSTer, and you can go and download it and play it today. Just don't expect a ton, because it is still 100% a work in progress. But that little MiSTer on top of my Sega Saturn now functions as a janky Sega Saturn, and that's amazing. Do me a huge favor, hit like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. I'll have videos throughout the week and more MiSTer next week, and I'll have one on Thursday too. See ya. Bye bye.